thousands of people, asking questions about you. When are you going to bring Ron back on? So I got
very cool.
Some of the questions they were asking about you is if you can list all the movies that you've been into or been on or been a part of.
Well, I can talk about a lot of them. Luckily, it's such a long list now. Even I don't quite remember all of them. Hang on. Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, we're here.
All right, good. Yeah. Sorry, I had to plug in the phone because I'm losing. Come here. I'm losing juice. There we go. So yeah, they can always check me out on imdb.com, the Internet Movie Database, and you'll see. And even that's not all of them because there are some projects that were either not finished or not listed on IMDb if they didn't register the project up there. But oh wow! It starts with the item. People used to come up to me all the time and think I was in Manhunter because there was a Ron Fitzgerald that played the security guard in Manhunter. And people used to come up and ask me to sign Manhunter at horror conventions. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not my work. That's somebody else with the same name that was working at that time. So, but they appreciated that I was honest about it because most people just would have signed it. So I actually sold a few copies of Dark Realm that way, which was nice. But it starts with the item, and then there's some other earlier short films. Blood Gnome, which is another movie by John LaChaga, which is a really good horror film if you like those kind of little monster movie kind of things. So it's fun like that because it's these little gnome creatures that are very gnarly and drink your blood and like that. It's provocative because that one is actually, as we were talking about Handcuffs earlier, it's set in the BDSM underground, that horror film. And I don't know of any other horror film that's actually set in that world. So if you want something provocative and cool little creatures that will drink your blood, Blood Gnome by John LaChaga, you want to check that out. I actually perform a version of the Vampire's Kiss in that. Julie Strain's in that movie too, so she's in that one as well as Magus with us, and then the star of that Blood Gnome is where I met my friend and production partner on Dark Realm, Vincent Blanchio. Vinny he stars in Blood Gnome. So if you want to see one of his movies, check out Blood Gnome, and that's out there. And then there's what is there? There's something called The Thirsting, and that's out under another name called Lilith, and that was out I think in other territories. I know South America and other places that was Lilith, and that actually not the Hunger, The Thirsting. So The Thirsting, also known as Lilith, actually that is a film I did, and I didn't have a scene with him, but who am I trying to think? Andy. Or not Andy. Mickey Rooney is in that movie.
Oh wow, the late Mickey Rooney.
Yeah. So yep.
I didn't even know he was making movies. What year would that have been, roughly?
Oh, what year did that come out? Now about 10, 15 years ago, I think.
Oh wow, because I know he was really. In the last part of his life, he was really into one of the Christian channels where he was there all the time, and him and his wife talking about the Lord and Jesus and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he really, he was, a lot of people, don't realize Mickey Rooney was a major, major star. In Hollywood, huge star.
He was Hollywood royalty. Yes, absolutely. That's why I'm kind of geeked to even just to be in a movie in with him. I didn't have a scene with him, but it's an honor to be in the same film that he appears in. And it has the film has a religious, bent to it, overtone to it. So maybe that's why it appealed to him to do that.
Well, I also was going to say what's so sad though. You look at some of these major stars, right? I think, he did the Andy Hardy series. Do you remember that, Michael?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's
with the judge, his father?
Yeah.
And who's that, the singer, he did The Wizard of Oz, Julie Garland was his girlfriend in a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
And, Yeah, and it's so sad though, that he was so popular I think in the 30s, and then in the 40s, and then in the 50s, he kind of like, just sliding off to like B movies, and then you just saw him on TV occasionally. I think he did a couple movies, I think in the late 60s, I think one with Frank Sinatra, one or two movies. But boy, I mean, such a great talent, and such, from what I heard from people, a very, very nice person. That's. I have an insight because, for many years I knew James Gardner. So, I'd ask him questions when when I talked to him, and he seemed to know a lot of people. So, a lot of real people out there. That's not going into too much about like James Gardner. He was real. Sometimes when people become a movie star, they become a real asshole. And there's very few, famous people out there, actors that are just real people. And that's what I like about talking with Ron. You know what? We're having just like he was sitting here and we were drinking a beer, sitting back with our feet kicked up on the table, just having fun bullshitting. And that's what I like about Ron. I mean, he's a real person. And and really his movies, I've seen a couple of them. I mean, I'm into those type of things. I still haven't seen the whole Dark Realm because I'm going to make a point of it. It's just every time I go to sit down.
Do.
Yeah. Well, Michael needs to get it too and watch it.
Yes, I do. And I'll tell you, I just wanted to thank Ron for being such a great guest here tonight, because it's not very many Gothic personalities actually that have that are easy to talk to. For one thing, let's put it that way. Some of them are so emo that you can't even get an interview out of them. And obviously, Ron is a very intelligent person himself. So thank you for all you've done tonight.
Well, if you haven't noticed, he's friendly. He's fun. He has a great sense of humor. I mean, I had another Gothic guest on back a couple months ago, and I tell you, it was a 2-hour show. I cut it down to a 1-hour show, and from the first 2 minutes after the show started, I was sweating bullets.
Yeah. Really? Yeah.
By about 5 minutes after it, I had to pee really bad. Does that tell you how bad a show it was? I mean, the guy wrote a book on, like the Walking Dead type of book, of zombies.
Right.
And the guy bugged me for months. I mean, email after email. And then his agent would, call me and send me emails, right? Saying this guy really wants to be on your show. I get him on my show, right? And I introduce him and we talk a little bit. He says the name of his book. And then I said, okay, well, can you tell us a little bit about the book? No, I don't want to give any plots away. I knew at that point, okay, I was in a shitload of trouble, period. It was bad. And it kept going worse the whole hour that he was on. I ended up carrying the show by talking about, like Walking Dead, all the zombie movies that were ever made, and trying to pick my brain, like, send more cops. I mean, I was talking about anything that came in my mind. And then the last 10 minutes of the show, it actually got silly, right? So silly. We have like a little donation thing on our website, help the network. I had people sending large amounts of money saying it was the funniest show they have ever listened to on the internet. And I wish I could remember the episode it was, because I was getting so silly, and I guess people really liked it because, I didn't know what to do. It was like living hell.
You did it. You stepped up and you hosted the hell out of that thing. I mean, what else can you do? I mean, if your guest is there and they're not engaging with you, and it's like, I don't know why he wants to be on anybody's show so bad if he doesn't have some talking points about his book. I think that is for somebody if he'd have spent as much time coming up with talking points as much effort as you put into he and his agent, hunting you down to get on the show, you would think he'd have something to talk about then. But it's shocking, but that's what a good host you are. I mean, you can roll with that, even though you're stuck having to carry the entire show on your own. Clearly it worked for you.
But you want to hear the funny part? towards the end of the show, I said to the gentleman, I said, okay, well, where can you get your book? And he goes, you can get it through Amazon and all this stuff. And I said, okay. And then, I asked him some other question. He goes, yeah, it's, for Amazon, they print it up as you order it and it gets shipped out within a few days. And I go, okay. And I said, well, how many, out of curiosity, how many copies have you sold? He goes, none. I said, how long has it been out? About a year.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I sure didn't do a good job screening. I can tell you that.
Wow. Hey, well, I can't. Yeah, go ahead.
That brings up the question for Ron. When is he going to write his book?
Well, I'm working on it. I've got one that's like 3 stories of mine. They're true stories, true tales of some of my early days and things about me being investigated as a cult leader in New York and sleeping in a coffin, things like that. So there's some really fun, provocative stories in here, and a great kidnapping story that took place right on Michigan Avenue, downtown Chicago. And so there's some good stuff in there. Yes. And
now, was
I'm working on that.
Was the sleeping in the coffin in the story, was it real or just part of the story?
Yes. This coffin, and the coffin's also, there's another story. There's kind of through lines that connect these 3 larger stories together, and they're stories when I was off. It was kind of in my early days. At that point, I was working in amusement parks for an awesome guy named Paul Osborne, who made illusion plans, and you can still get his illusion plans. Paul sadly is gone now, but I worked for him. He was a producer, and he had worked as an illusion designer with like everybody in the industry, including David Copperfield, who wrote the foreword to one of his illusion books a while ago. And I was honored because I got to write a foreword to his last book of scary illusions that he did. He had 2 of them. One was called Haunted Illusions, and the other one was called Evillusions. And I wrote the foreword in Evillusions for Paul. And anyway, I was working for him, and so I was working in the theme park industry, and this was in upstate New York. And I'd been out there to this park before, but we had, and I was living in an apartment with 3 women, with my girlfriend and 2 other women, who we all worked together in the shows. So we got one place together. And my girlfriend and I, and she was very provocative. She was an entertainer. She was a singer. She was also a stripper. She was very interesting, and colorful. So we had this coffin that I've been using as a prop in my show. It was not the cremation illusion, which is also looks like a giant coffin, but an actual coffin, that you would use for a funeral or something, or you would bury someone in. So we took this with us out there, and we put it in the living room in our apartment in upstate New York. And we had some parties there and stuff like that. And one of the people from the park that was invited, her mother was very unhappy that she was hanging out with such nefarious show business type characters. So she apparently had friends or ties to the police, and I had been pulled over for no reason whatsoever. And then I found out later that, and I don't mess with the cops. I'm like, I let them look around my van, etc. It's just, has my equipment in it, stuff like that. And I found out later that they trusted me even less because I cooperated with them, because I did not give them a hard time. They were more suspicious of me, like I had something to hide, and that's why I cooperated, rather than I don't want to get locked up by the cops, so I'm not going to mess with them. So and then eventually I got wind of this because my landlady, who was awesome, and she was very much into alternative healing arts, Reiki, and things like that. And she was awesome. So she gives me this guy's card. She's like, they're investigating you. And it's like, and she said, I told them, I told them you're a performer and you're a nice guy. So here's this guy's card. You call him and you have him over and, explain it, because I told them, but they want to talk to you now. I'm like, fine. So I call this investigator, and he comes out to meet my girlfriend and I, and we're up in there, and the coffin's in there and everything. And,